a special panel next on cloud as a strategy, a 360 view from industry leaders. And moderating this panel is Monti Becker Kelly, who is the Senior Vice President of Customer Engagement and Strategy at 24/7 AI. Monty, over to you.
Thank you, Preeti. We're very excited for this panel today. Welcome to Cloud as a Strategy, a 360 view from industry leaders. I'm Monti Becker Kelly, and I will be the moderator for today's interactive and exciting discussion. I'm the Senior Vice President of Customer Engagement and Strategy, as Preeti said, for 24/7 AI, which is a conversational AI and customer experience company. First, just a housekeeping item. We will be able to get this recording on demand, so you may share it with a colleague who possibly wasn't able to attend. And now I'll go ahead and introduce our expert guest speakers and panelists. We have experts from a wide range of cutting-edge companies. I'd like to go ahead and start introducing Praveena Vajja, Vice President of Product Management for NetApp, Edith Harbaugh, Chief Executive Officer of LaunchDarkly, Manjula Talreja, Chief Customer Officer of PagerDuty, and Archana Vemulapalli, General Manager of IBM. Now, to start the panel off, if I were to ask you what the most disruptive technologies are for 2021, many of you might talk about 5G, AI, or IoT. That's understandable, as these companies hold a great potential to really upend our entire lives. However, cloud computing and SaaS should also be on that list. You might be thinking, how could that be disruptive? It's been around for 20 years. Well, it's incredibly disruptive, and today's panel is going to talk about why. As far as SaaS and cloud computing, could 2021 be the year that SaaS finally boots on-premise software off the premises? We're going to find out from the powerhouse of speakers that we have today. So to start off, we saw rapid digital transformation in the last half of 2020. There's clear evidence that cloud adoption has accelerated at a previously unforeseen pace as a result of the pandemic. With a shifting in consumer demands continuing to be increasing for faster, better, more personalized and predictive interactions, and those increasing pressures being placed on businesses, what do you see, here's my question, as the top 1 to 2 trends in 2021? And the second part of the question is, do you see those trends continuing, slowing down? At what pace? Because many of us are returning to work, we're shopping in stores again, we're going out to restaurants. What do you think, what do you predict? Praveena, let's start with you.
Thank you, Monty, for having me on this panel. I'm super excited today to be with the co-panelists and some powerful women who are in the forefront of this change and transformation. So as you correctly said, cloud's been there for a while. So what's disruptive? I think what's disruptive is the adoption and the uptake that has gone broader than what we have witnessed before. And I say that the trend that I'm personally seeing is now that the digital transformation made reality. It has never been more important than now. And we're seeing a massive growth in the use of AI and machine learning to leap forward, right? The trend is data into insights and insights into data. We've talked about this, but I think we're seeing it not only for real, but across a broad set of industries, customer segments, and even functions within an organization. I think that's what's gotten very disruptive here, right? From an enterprise industry standpoint and where I come from, the accelerated growth and adoption is what's disruptive. So the scale and the efficiencies that we need to build into the entire infrastructure and pipeline, and the experience is front and center of that. Let's take the example of the CIO office. I mean, CIO office has always been critical to a business. Their jobs have gotten more important than ever before, and not only to serve their internal stakeholders like their operations and sales and marketing and engineering and customers, but the broader responsibility of driving the business and leaping it forward and bringing this experience, as you correctly said, a more personalized experience to our customers, to our employees, right? How do we motivate our employees? How do we make them stay connected in this remote working environment has become a very big challenge. And the IT departments in the Office of CIO has played a huge role in quickly adapting to the change that we were seeing. And at the business model level, we see a huge consumption model is getting adopted across the board. So I would say that the human race has put their creative minds to action is what is disruptive here. I'll give a couple of examples. Health and fitness apps have become more important than ever. I never thought I would be on a video call with my doctor so soon. For my kids, my 3-year-old also gets on a video call with her doctor. And so that's all the positive side, right? But to your point, I think we all have to be cautious and we have to be watching out that how many of these trends are really going to continue and are here to stay, versus do we see any deceleration on some of these trends as we transition back into the post-pandemic world.
Thank you, Praveena. All great points. Now, Edith, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, so I'm CEO and co-founder of LaunchDarkly, and we have 1,000+ customers all over the world, like IBM, Intuit, Atlassian, who use us for feature management to deliver and control their software. So a real trend we've seen in our restaurant, banking, healthcare customers is basically 10 years of digital transformation got shrunk into about 6 months. The idea that you could plan out this huge roadmap of maybe people will start using your mobile app over the next 5 to 10 years suddenly got, hey, nobody's allowed to go to a bank right now at all because of lockdown, and I need to have a mobile app now. And what's also happened with this is that these customers have seen real business value. Like, I don't think it's going to go away that, like, if you're ordering, coffee or pizza, it's really convenient to do it from an app. You don't want to stand in line for 10 minutes. You want to just punch it in and pick it up. The hybrid trend, though, I do think is that there are also then an opportunity for, and I keep coming back to restaurants, is, sometimes you do just want to kind of hang out and have a cup of coffee with a friend. So I think that both opportunities will be there to say, okay, I would really want a digital experience or I want an in-person experience. And as I said before, banks, doctors, restaurants will have to accommodate both.
Yeah, absolutely. And Edith, before we move on to Manjula, your point about still wanting to have, and even more so now, that cup of coffee in person. And then Praveena, your point about how do we keep extremely effectively a growing population of remote workers connected? And it's like, what should companies be thinking about as we start to maybe balance the two a little bit better in such a disruptive place? So Manjula, what are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more with Praveena and Edith. And here is my point of view. At a personal level, move from a personal shopper to Instacart. And I think I'm going to stay with it. And what's real here, to talk about the second part of your question first before your first part, is just yesterday, an outside consultant was interviewing the executives of PagerDuty on what will it look like to come back to work. And as the Chief Customer Officer, I run everything post-sales for PagerDuty. And one of the organizations in that report up to me is the support organization. And think visually. We think about support organizations being these floors, whether it is in a low-cost center in Malaysia or in the United States, all sitting on one floor. Last year, on a turn of a dime, all support organizations started working from home. So when I'm having a conversation with the consultants who are coming in who are defining the future of work. And they asked whether my support organization will be back in the office. I said, no. I said, we've just been as efficient. Yes, the first month was bumpy, but we've been just as efficient running the business remotely. And it'll be a different kind of experience. And I kind of joked and I said, we all have the fear of being together. And in San Francisco, maybe you'll have a team meeting on the Embarcadero on the in a cafe outdoor versus inside the office. So the art of the possible has changed. So going back to the first point, so what are we seeing is exactly what Praveena and Edith are seeing. Think about what the pandemic has done. The pandemic has changed our mindset. So when customers are talking to us about alerting across the world, and it's a global conversation now, it's not a local conversation. When we're talking to the Goldman Sachs or the Salesforces or even the smallest companies, they're talking about how do you turn on a dime when an earthquake happens in Indonesia? When do you turn on a dime? And I love this scenario that people talk about. It's not about ticketing. It's not about sequential. It's not about baseball. It's about basketball. How do you react super fast? How do you not react sequentially? And that's the speed of digital transformation and the acceleration that we are talking about. It's moving from sequential to real time. And that's the digital transformation. I do want to add one more point, and I think Praveena touched on the CIO's office. I'd like to touch on engineering. There's been this conversation about DevOps for so long, and there has been a huge acceleration of moving to service management and DevOps in engineering faster than ever before. So digital transformation is not about just the digital experience for the customer, but how largest to the smallest companies are changing the entire company and working in a very different way from a customer devotion, customer obsession, and aligning as a company with digital acceleration.
Manjula, I think your point about moving from sequential to real time, and love your basketball analogy, is fantastic and something that everyone needs to be thinking about. And then finally, Archana, what do you think?
So Monty, first off, thank you for having me. It's great to be a part of this panel. And it's more importantly, I think it's a very interesting topic because I feel like it's the dichotomy of life, right? We have a pandemic that we're still amidst of. A number of us are dealing with extended family members and friends who are still coping with some major adversities that this pandemic has caused. So, I recognize that, but in that same moment in time, it's like the value of technology has been realized in a very, very different way, right? So I think all of my colleagues on this panel have raised the speed of innovation as a core tenet. But if I had to give you one perspective, I think what's here to stay is the construct of flexible models. And I think anything to one extreme, people get fatigue off over time. I think people love Zoom 2 months in and probably have strong, passionate, reactions about being on it more than 8 hours a day now. So I think for organizations, it behooves us to plan flexibility and scalability. And this is why cloud is now not an aspirational thing. It's here to stay because those are the models and tenets around which the whole cloud construct is designed around, right? So I think that's here to stay. One trend I do think is going to pick up and has already been picking up is the focus on trust, security, and resiliency. We have all accelerated, right? Everybody went into a react mode when the pandemic hit. Organizations had to surge, you had to innovate quickly, you had to get your applications online where your systems were stuck in environments that were traditional, you had to figure out how to bridge the gaps. But we have gotten a lot of data out there and new ways of consumption, and I think we have not paid as much attention to data governance and trust. And that, I believe, now is something all organizations will look at and need to look at, because as you start to plan systemic, scalable environments, that becomes a core tenet, right? So at least my view, I know you asked for one of the one of the trends I expect to see in 2021. I fully expect that a lot of organizations are going to have a very intentional exercise in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And your point about the construct of flexible models and the importance of scalability and efficiencies ties perfectly in with what Praveena said early on. So great trends. So moving on, because we have limited time. What do you all think is the number one most critical success factor that leaders of businesses should be thinking about as they launch go-to-market strategies with cloud? We see a lot of changes in the industry within companies trying to keep up, right, and predict what's going to happen with cloud. And so for those listening, you all are fantastic leaders. What is like the single most important success factor people should be thinking about? We'll start with you, Archana.
Sure, happy to. I think the core fundamental that a lot of people miss is tying business strategy and outcomes to your technology strategy and investments. And that's even more important now. I think when the early adoption of cloud happened, everybody looked at it as a mere workload shift approach and a cost optimization approach or a diversification approach. But with digital transformation, I think the real big thing is about reinventing not just your processes, but also your people, the skills, and leveraging cloud as a core construct. So tying your business outcomes and having a business view of how you want to transform leveraging technology the right way is absolutely key. And it has to be an ongoing refresher. The other mistake everybody makes is they think it's a one and done. I've built a cloud plan, I have a cloud strategy, I'm good. It doesn't. I mean, the beauty about some of the trends you see is innovations happening hard and fast. So you have to constantly look at what's happening in the market and update and upkeep what you're doing, right? So I do think that plays a key role.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not a one and done. Manjula, what are your thoughts? Number one most critical success factor.
Yeah, Archana, I love the way she spoke about it as a consumer of cloud in terms of it's an operating model change, process, people, and technology. That's a journey. And I'll speak to you more from the supply side as a vendor who's a 100% SaaS company that was born a SaaS company. The go-to-market is a business model change. So I know in the audience, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are building SaaS companies or transforming their existing companies to cloud companies. And when you're a SaaS company, the whole go-to-market is completely different. You're looking at revenue from a recurring revenue point of view. Churn plays a very important role and renewals plays a very important role. So when you think about a customer go-to-market, overall go-to-market engine, you've got sales, and then you've got post-sales. And let's not make the error. The cool word in town is customer success. And customer success is not customer service. Most traditional legacy companies that are on-prem have customer service. Customer success is having consultants who are driving the adoption, deployment, and stickiness of your product so that when it's up for renewal again, it is stuck. The role of data science plays a very important role because the power of SaaS companies is about knowing everything about your customer. So the way you're interacting with customers and your go-to-market engine is actually a major transformational change. And this model about the customer success and the post-sales model was actually innovated by Mark Benioff in conjunction with Maria Martinez, who just happens to be my mentor and who coached me through this at Salesforce. But it's as entrepreneurs are listening to this, think about your go-to-market engine just as much you think about the technology as you launch your companies, especially those that are born cloud and are born SaaS.
Excellent, excellent points. I think our audience can take away what not to do, as well as some ideas of what to do. Edith, in your experience as the CEO and founder, what can you tell us? Thank you, Manjula.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we started 7 years ago. So our customer base is very interesting because we have kind of what I call the upstarts, like Fubo.tv, a streaming service, was a very early customer, which was cloud only and is now listed on the NASDAQ. And then we also have what I'd say more traditional streaming services. So they're both trying to get to the same end goal of providing entertainment to people, but they both have to move incredibly fast and adopt this new cloud world. You know, if an online streaming service just says, hey, we're just going to repackage everything we show on TV and put it in the cloud, that's not going to work. So your cloud go-to-market strategy has to be something that reflects that an online world is a little bit different, both in terms of speed that people expect and how they consume it.
And Edith, would you agree that all the video games that my son is constantly playing fits into that?
Yeah, I mean, we have such a breadth of customers. It's really funny because we also have automotive customers, robotics customers. But when you look at our customer list, there's almost always an upstart and a traditional, and they're both trying to get to the same endpoint of faster value with less risk.
Right, and the teenagers want faster so that they can get more wins in. So, lastly, though, what else anyone else want to comment?
I'll add to what everybody said here, right? Is that the customer first is the key focus of the go-to-market strategies. It's about us educating our customers, bringing awareness, and how can they do their business in ways they couldn't do before? How can they grow their business in ways they couldn't do before? And how are they going to leap forward with our strategy, and how, in partnership with our customers, how do we define a strategy that gets them there? And the other key part, which everybody brought up in their themes, is being agile about go-to-market strategy. You can't have a strategy and a plan and execute and not have a way to, adapt to it. So if you remember, when we entered the pandemic, Zoom quickly launched the pricing model for the education sector, right? I think that was a huge step, and they were able to do it very, very fast. So being agile about launching new models and new ways of going to market is going to be important as well. Monty.
I'll plus one to that.
Oh.
Go ahead, Monty.
No. Go ahead. We want to hear from you.
I'll plus one to that. And I think, again, if we think about our companies and I think about the audience, culture is a very, very important piece of how we are moving in this era. And if you're building a culture, to the point that Praveena was making about customer devotion, customer obsession, is championing the customer as an entire company is not in the core values of your company, and running together is not, the digital era will come and go for you. And this is when winners and losers will be defined. And it isn't about the go-to-market team being focused on with the customer in the middle. It's about the HR team, the finance team, the legal team, and the speed at which you are working with the customer. And that is why it has to be an integral part and foundational to how you're driving the culture of your company.
Yeah, so important to tie in culture and as well as growth. I just read something, and then we'll move on, that some of you may know, but the latest statistic out there is for cloud services, Q4 2020 grew to $37 billion. So when you say winners and losers, Manjula, that's incredibly important to think about, that incredible double-digit growth that's going to just continue in cloud services. So to keep conscious of time, we started just a couple minutes late, so I'll just take a couple minutes because this is a fantastic discussion and panel. One of the things we wanted to cover real quick is we hear a lot about multi-cloud, hybrid cloud deployments, and why is it important for companies to really understand that and really be thinking about that as far as adoption? Praveena, do you want to give us your view on that?
Absolutely, that's a topic of my passion, and so I would love to. So customers want a cloud-like experience, right? When I say cloud-like experience, it's the operability, it's the efficiencies, it's the scale, and they want to run their applications and their business that best suits their needs. Hence, cloud is an experience and not a venue, right? So thinking from that angle is important. And some of the latest trends we're seeing, and in fact, customers are actually very savvy about, is that they don't want to be logged in to a certain vendor or a certain cloud provider. They want to future-proof their investments, and they want to run their workloads where they can best run, on-prem, cloud, edge, right? So it is about their business, it's about their customers. So the multi-cloud strategy is going to be the strategy for most of the enterprise class customers, at least where I come from. And the key is having apps that are built in a cloud connected way and are not logged into a certain technology, a certain architecture that only allows you to deploy in a certain cloud or with a certain cloud provider. And last but not the least is to bring the richness of cloud and the architecture in a simple way to our customers' doorstep. So all of this put together is going to be very important to the multi-cloud hybrid cloud strategy going forward, Monti.
Yeah, thank you. And we appreciate how you made it simple, because I know it's a difficult concept and a lot of factors out there to consider. Archana, I'd like to hear from you on this as well. And then I want to get to data science real quick, and then parting thoughts. So tell us what your view is on this whole multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, movement and deployments we see going on.
So my view on this is the enterprise always needs diversity, because a diversity of suppliers, a diversity of capabilities reduces risk. Any monopolistic positioning or monopolistic play of one provider versus another puts an enterprise inherently at risk, because you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And so historically, and the enterprise always did that, right? Whether it was products, plays, whether it was software on-prem or SaaS, whatever your models are, you diversified to de-risk. Because when something failed, you didn't completely go down with one dependency alone. From that perspective, having a multi-cloud play is very important. But I'll tell you that a lot of organizations have a little bit of this messaging mixed up. They think that operating on multiple clouds is actually being multi-cloud. And I think those two are very different. You consume today, every enterprise probably consumes off 4 or 5 clouds easily. Whether it's SaaS applications they consume, stuff they do on-prem in their data centers, their own private cloud plays, it's a myriad of consumption plays. But to be truly multi-cloud, you have to do a risk assessment. You have to understand your infrastructure layer, where that sits. You have to understand your PaaS layer, your SaaS applications, and your footprint, and how you manage that across these in a seamless way. So I think a true multi-cloud model actually does need to be something that organizations have to be evolved to. But that again goes back to the whole business outcome, strategic investment layout, and then putting that layer in, right? So I do think it's in every organization's interest to have a strong multi-cloud strategy and plan. I think the big risk they all have is actually skills. Yeah, there are not enough skills that are wide enough and deep enough to span, which is why you see organizations sometimes tending, one way versus the other. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, thank you. No, we really appreciate those perspectives. And tied in at the comment, Manjula, that you made previously, and we only have just a couple minutes left. I wish we could keep going. What do you think the role is? We've heard it several times of data science in cloud. That's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, it's really the convergence occurring now, and with speed. Data science for the longest of time was from a technology point of view. It's reached a point of maturity where can converge very well in terms of business. And I'll give you an example. The amount of data that cloud companies and SaaS companies have is amazing. And what do you do with that? Customers buy technology, not for the sake of technology, but to the point Archana is making, for business outcomes. So how do you marry the technology to the business outcomes. And what is the role of us as vendors playing with the driving the outcomes for the customer? It's through data science. So data science is sitting within the post-sales organization, within my team. I have a whole data science team. Marketing has data science now. So many organizations have data science teams. But what do you do with them? It's not data science for the sake of data science. You've got to have the right combination of business value experts with data science so that when we go to the customer, we share with them what is the ROI they're getting? How are they using the technology? How can they optimize the use of technology? And that is all done through data science. And most customers want to know, tell me a benchmark. What does good look like? What's happening in the financial industry if I'm in the financial industry? And all of that is that combination of the data science we're pulling together in conjunction to the business value leaders who are then going into the customers. And customers absolutely love that, because now as vendors, we are working with them as cloud companies on optimizing their use and coming up with new and different and creating the art of the possible rather than buying the technology for the way they had thought they were buying it in the first place.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And we think that you ladies represent what good and great looks like. And unfortunately, we're out of time. We could keep going all day with this panel. So thank you so much. My parting comments are that looking ahead, what you see in front of you is a brilliant, very powerful group of women leading data science, SaaS, cloud, and you're going to continue to see that into the future. So it's not just women, it's diverse women from around the world taking, global leadership to a new level. We're incredibly proud of you, and amazing role models in technology, and go women in cloud. So Preeti, back to you. I think it was a brilliant panel. Thank you so much for the opportunity to work with these amazing women.
Absolutely, Monty. Wow. What a powerful panel that was, with several women leaders. I loved the stories I heard. We heard so many analogies, starting with basketball to video games to taking care of customers through your strategy and business models. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Edith, Manjula, Monty, Praveena, and Archana for taking time to be part of the TiEcon panel.
Thank
Well,
you.
we
Oh,
had a
wonderful.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monty. You're brilliant.
It was fun. So are you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Lovely meeting you.